Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Now, let's get back to the woman at the well and see how Jesus evangelizes. You know, some people say, I don't know how to evangelize. I get all tongue-tied. I'm not sure how to reach people. And right away, the first thing they're doing wrong is that they're thinking about themselves. They're not thinking of the goal. And if you see how Jesus did it, it's very simple. First of all, you have to be present. You have to make contact. How do you make contact? Be there. Just be there. You go there. He went to the well. He sat down. He got rid of the distractions. He sent the apostles into the town to get food, and the woman came to the well. Number one, just be there. If you're not there, you can't witness. You can't evangelize. Witnessing means to express yourself and show what Jesus means to you, what he's told you, what how he acted. And evangelizing, to start, is just to do what Jesus does. Just imitate him. He's the model. Just go step by step. So the woman is drawing water. Drawing water? Is she just drawing water? No, she isn't. She's thinking about, who's this guy sitting by the well? The way he looks, the way he's dressed, with the prayer shawl maybe, or the phylacteries on his head and arm, and with the apron, with the prayer apron with the tassels. Well, he's a Jew. And she's thinking, drawing a well, focusing, trying to focus on drawing water down that deep well, Jacob's well. And so she could get the water at noontime when no one else is around, because he's not so sure how she's accepted by the other women of her own village, because she's got a secret to hide. She's not like them. So, but she's thinking. She's thinking, who's he? And he's not paying attention. But he is. He's just sitting there. And then, number two, make a move. See what the other person is doing. Don't think about your goal, what you're going to say, what you are going to present to her, whether you're going to succeed or not to succeed. Just observe what the other person is doing. See who they are. It's a woman. She's drawing water. She's minding her own business. She's there at noontime, an unusual time. You're working out things, and you're going to connect to her. She's not going to connect to you. You have to take initiative. It's like when people say, I can't love my enemy. Well, Jesus is not saying to you, figure out all the things about your enemy and have a simple goal. He just says, love. Can you see the enemy as a child of God? Can you see him not as an enemy? And see where you can have acceptance of him. You're pretty sure you're not going to agree with him. You're not going to work out into an argument. You're just going to see if you can accept him as a human being, as a person who was created by God. You may be thinking of him as a lost sheep, a wandering sheep, a confused lamb, someone who is unsafe with you, with a society. Those are not your concern. Just love has initiative. Love one-sidedly. Love one-sided. You don't know if he's going to love you. You love. Initiate it. That's what Jesus does. He initiates it. Could I have a cup of water? He didn't say, hey, you Samaritan. Hey, you woman. He doesn't see with the eyes of man. He only sees with the eyes of God. God sees her as his child. He's a son of God. And he sees her as a sibling. Not the perfect one, but a sister. And so that second point, look to see what they're doing. When I go out to witness or maybe just ride a bicycle in a park, I see somebody sitting on a bench. In actual fact, I'll give you an actual fact. See, two young people, two young adults sitting together talking. And just riding by, and I say, wow, you made my day. What? Yeah. I see two people sitting and talking to each other. You're not talking through an iPhone. You're not looking at an iPhone. You're not just paying attention to yourself. Like you see mothers with children going through the park, they're pushing a baby carriage, and then a couple of kids running after them, each one with an iPhone. They don't make my day. To see, here's two human beings talking, and they look up, they say, yeah, we know what you mean. They respond. So that's what happens. You get a response. Once you get a response from someone, they don't know it, but they have flipped the trap. They're attached. You've made connection. From there on, you simply talk. See what they say. Respond. Form a dialogue. Not a monologue, not just thinking about yourself, but a dialogue. Two people. Now you've got two people talking. And that's what Jesus is doing at the well. The two people are talking. She starts talking about her views. Why are you a Jew and you're talking to me? Don't you know it's forbidden? What is she expressing? She's expressing her culture. Her culture. What she was told how to deal with Jews. Does Jesus respond with his culture? No. His culture is that you're not allowed to talk to a Samaritan. You're not allowed to be in their shadow. You become unclean. That's what his culture is saying. But he doesn't speak through his culture. He speaks through the eyes of God. He's talking to his sister. So she's trapped. She doesn't know she's trapped now. She doesn't know that now the trap is the trap of connection. It's not a vicious trap. It's a happy trap. a trap that people don't mind. It's not tying a person to yourself. It's giving them an opportunity to reach out. You reach out and they reach out. So you disassociate to the trap. What is a culture? A culture is all the diversities that all people have. Their leaders told them what to think, what to say, how to act. Think, judge, and act. We're trapped by that. But God tells us how to think, judge, and act. And Jesus is showing how to think, judge, and act. He thinks that Father has sent him. He judges. This is my sister. He acts like family. That's how you begin evangelization. That's how you begin it. So, I am going to, excuse me, but I'm going to have to give you some of my own experiences. When I left the country and went out to teach in another country, and I was in a different culture. I'm an American. I have my own culture, my own ways, what I was taught about how the Brits are the enemies. We have a revolution against the British. I was trained that way and indoctrinated that way in school. We had to have a revolution. We were not free. We had to break away. So I go to Australia. I didn't have to break away from the Australians. I went there to connect to them. But they had a British culture. But it wasn't the British culture of England. It was the British culture of Australia. Of people who were in a British culture, but who actually liked Americans, liked Yanks. And I was a Yank. Everything didn't go straight off, and they didn't embrace me at first, but they accepted me. I didn't have the English barrier. I found there was almost no barrier. From there, after years, I went to Malaysia. There was another complicated culture. The Muslims. Confused, they weren't the Muslims of Muhammad. They were trying to kill me. And I had to adapt to that one. Then from there, went to Singapore. Another culture, completely different. The Chinese. Chinese who had been mixed in with the British, who had been opposed and persecuted by the Japanese. Now, it was another complicated culture. Same thing happened. It wasn't just an embracing. Culture can clash with culture, but I wasn't going to allow it to clash with culture. I just got to be there, absorb, accept. And I found out I was accepted. Went to Thailand, the Buddhists. That was a very happy experience with that one, because in their culture, they had already a culture of happiness, of acceptance, and especially of accepting Yanks, excepting Americans, because of what their King Mongkut had done some years before. But if I were French, they would not accept me. French were the ones who were trying to control them. Brits were the ones who tried to control them. From there to India, the Hindus. Again, another culture. So if you deal through cultures, you find barriers. Because each of the persons, each of the historical circumstances that formed those cultures have put barriers, fears, wars, killings, all terrible things that made you wonder and fear. Wonder and be careful. You are not safe. When you find a place that is not safe, you have begun to wonder. I went to Syria and Damascus, through Lebanon. The same thing. Had to be careful there. Very careful. Going to the great mosque in Damascus, where they found out when they went into that mosque, they didn't know whether I was an Arab or a Yank or whatever at first. Just went in. And there was a tomb of John the Baptist. They claimed to have the head of John the Baptist in a tomb, drinking with jasmine perfume. When I met the imams, they said, "Oh, culture. You're a Yank." Outside of that mosque was an Israeli airplane that they had captured to show in the war with Israel, that they had downed an Israel airplane. I ignored that. They said, "Well, what do you think of Muhammad?" Just like this woman at the well is asking Jesus, "What do you think of the Jews? Do we worship at the temple in Jerusalem or at Mount Gerizim, at our temple?" And begin to judge. And I said, "Well, I'm sure Muhammad was trying to improve the culture of the Arabs. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. I didn't know what would be the result. So I come back to America, and I'm like a person who had been 10 years in prison with all these other cultures and see something happening to our culture. In the late 60s, we ever come to California to see my mother, and there is a cultural revolution going on. Young students from universities, burning universities, attacking the culture of Christianity, the culture of the Constitution, not allowing freedom of speech. Right there near Huntington Beach, that was my experience there. I said, "Oh, don't go there. Don't check Tin Can Beach. There's hippies there, and they're on drugs. They're on alcohol. They're on sex. They're skinny dipping in that ocean." And I said, "David, I'm a Catholic. Do I fear a culture? Do I impose a culture? That's the way those hippies would see me. So I said, I was kind of careful and connected with a sociologist, a Catholic sociologist. And I says, well, I'll just learn, keep my mouth shut, just observe. But I'll make connection. And he went there, and he's telling them how they're morally sick, pointing a finger at them, saying they can't do what they're doing, and so telling them the dangers of the drugs, the dangers of their way of life. And then I notice there is one hippie there with marks on his wrist. Looks like cuts, scars. He says, yeah. Probably trying to commit suicide. Oh, so someone is not happy with his culture. But he's alive. And his antagonistic way to get their agreement before acceptance and their attempt to be disagreeable became violent. And since I was there, knocked at me, knocked my glasses off and broke my glasses. So I had to rethink it. I went back, went to pray, Lord, what do I do? Well, don't go with that sociologist anymore, the expert. You better just go with Jesus. That's what I did. I figured out something. So I went with my Bible, not caving in. I'm saying who I am. With a cross, little wooden cross around my neck, and a blanket, and went and sat on the beach. And my notes, always a pad, writing things down, and just sat there. Just like Jesus said at the well. Took a day or two before someone came up. They're walking by. They're thinking, like the woman at the well is thinking. And he came, a guy came and antagonistically says, who are you? What are you doing on our beach? Well, just sitting here, thinking, praying. Well, what are you writing? Are you some kind of a informer? Some kind of person going to report us to the police? Well, here it is. Look at it. He says, what in the world is this? What in the world is this? You're talking about reaching out. You're talking about Jesus. You're reading about Jesus and the woman at the well. Yeah. Want to talk about it? Sit down. Didn't sit down right away, but eventually that's what happened. People came and there's this weirdo on the beach. They're telling me I'm the weirdo on the beach. And they sit down. Once they do that, they're trapped. It's a pleasant trap. Now, they're acting like I am human. I'm acting like they are human. There's a connection of acceptance. So, it grows. It grows. And you know what? Everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. And everybody wants to express this story. And they start expressing it. And when they're expressing it, they're connecting. The woman at the well expressed her story. She was a Samaritan. She moved away from her culture because she's showing to him she's not a polytheist. She is a disciple of Moses, believes in Moses. There's a connection. Jesus believes in Moses. This is the well that Jacob dug for us, that we may bring water for ourselves, for our animals. It's difficult, it's deep, we have to pull it up. Jesus says, he responds, I can give you living water. What? I can give you a fountain of water. Everlasting. It'll never end. I can give you a river of water. Moving water. You don't have to go down to get it. It's going to sweep at your feet. Living water. Flowing water. How can you do that? He's weird. She thinks he's weird. He says, only the Messiah can do that. Ah, he's speaking to you. He's speaking to me. Yeah, we're not just talking generalities. Let's get to specifics. Go get your husband, and I'll talk to him. You can listen. And so he's got a plan. Now, his goal is coming together. And he says, I have no husband. She's beginning to tell her story. He's drawing her story out of him because she feels safe. She feels confident. She's talking to a brother. It's family now. Ha! The family attitude that Jesus had now is transferred to her. Secretly, she had a family feeling, but it didn't come out. He drew it out. Jesus draws us out of ourselves. He draws us out to our own needs, to our own interests. It becomes a self-interest. I have no husband. He says, you're right. And you know you have no husband because you have 5. And the man you're with now is not a husband. He doesn't say it attackingly. He doesn't say it in a way. He just says it factually. And she begins to understand. How does this weird man know the rest of my story? You know, he must be different, and he's got it right. And he continues, and she's always safe. You know, when we tell our story, each person has a story. And the interesting thing is that the story that we tell others is only, at most, half of the story. Because it's a double, the book is tragic, and it's also just legendary. What we wish to say and what we don't say. There's two parts to it. We've got the positive side that we're willing to say to others, and sometimes exaggerated. something pleasant, something attractive, and that's the part of the story we tell. Autobiographies are not always biographies. From the time I was a child and learned to read and write in the Jewish tradition, Jewish Catholic, but still Jewish tradition. Jews are not smarter than other people, but they're respecters of the book. And I was taught to read and write before I went to kindergarten. And my father says, well, now that you know how to read, to learn things, I'll give you some good advice. Start with stories of biographies of famous men. I still remember some of those teachings. Read the young Abraham Lincoln. Still remember it. Don't read about those fake things that they tell you in fairy tales in kindergarten. So when I read these stories, and all through my life, through high school, college, reading biographies, I noticed something very strong. When they tell their stories, their autobiographies, they always tell you the good things they did. They tell you the successes they did. And if there were other problems, it was always somebody else's fault. Is that any different from a child in your own family? Is that different from what a husband will tell a wife and a wife tell a husband? Do they know the whole story? Do they know where you were the enemy? Where you were the one who didn't accept? Where you were the one who demanded agreement? You are the one who spoke through cultures that can be called prejudice, prejudging. Judgment is not wrong. Prejudging is wrong. Negative prejudging. If you prejudge something right, that's your brother and sister, that they're not in danger of you, that each one is safe, that's a bit different. So see what happened then with Jesus. You must be Messiah. A lot part of the conversation going on. Now the apostles come back and they say, well, here's food. Well, I'm not hungry. I have bread, the manna of heaven, the manna of my Father. I had the bread that this woman gave me when she opened her heart. I feed on that. I gave her bread, the Word of God. Yes, now she's becoming reborn, back to her original humanness, back to her original birth that Jesus gave in creation, back to the way the Father created her, back to the way I recreate her. She goes to the town. She can't contain herself. She doesn't think about the evil part of her life. She reaches out simply. I have found the Messiah. Come, see for yourself. They don't believe her. But there she comes back. Let's come back. To be continued. Love letters to the Father. The love letters never stop coming. But pray for me. I got a double story too. Jesus hears this story. That's why he's merciful. God bless.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.